So first thing is what user. User is what and who is user? So user is a person who is using the system. Very simple. It is a person who is going to use the system. Now, if you want to use the system, if you are the person and you want to use the system, then you have to authenticate yourself to the system that I am this, my name is this, and I know that I'm having a password about this, about my name, and I can use the system. I am authenticated to use the system. So whoever authenticated itself to use the system, it is called user. Now by default we have one user, and that is root. This is the default user we always have. This user is the administrator, and this is main administrator. Administrator. So by default we have only one user, that is root, and this is the main administrator. And main administrator, that means it has all the rights and permissions. So it has all the permissions and rights the system. It has all permissions to use this system. So it can do almost everything in your system. That means whatever the changes you want to do, it can do anything, it can delete anything, it can edit anything. It is the main administrator of your system. Now, if you are having a machine which is used by some multiple users, like you're having a machine in a place where different persons comes and log in and try to use the system, so you cannot give this root user permission, root user access to all the different people, because they may not be aware about this thing, or they may not want to, they can make a different, they can delete something, and they can do some changes which is harmful for your system, and it can corrupt your server. So it is recommended to have, and maybe the administrator itself sometime can run the command which is not good for the system. Mistakenly or unknowingly, it can corrupt the system also. So it is recommended to have a normal user which uses the system. So it is recommended to have a normal user in your system. Now it is recommended to have normal user for normal tasks. Now when you install graphically, when you install the graphical interface, you will get it will force you to create a normal user. But remember that user is still not a normal user. That one is like an administrator. The user which you create with this system when you are installing the GUI, so it will be like an administrator. That means it has rights, it has permissions, not all, but it has some actually it has all the permissions, not like the root, but it is having a permission. And how it is having a permission, we will see when we do the permissions topic. So that user, when you create with the GUI, so it will also have a permissions. Now we can assume, we can say like that is the normal user. Now if we are using it in the system, this Linux is in an organization, so maybe we will have multiple users, and maybe we are about to we need to create multiple users. So Linux is what? Multi-user operating system. Multi-user operating system, that means at the same time multiple users can log into the system, not locally but remotely through server, through different directory services. Not like Active Directory, we are not having an Active Directory services in Linux, but we are having some different type of directory authentication directory services. We have like Active Directory, but it is not Active Directory. These services are like different, but it is also a directory authentication services. We will see that in a next paper. Now in this paper, and for the beginning, we are going to create this. खुला है, बाहर से बंद है. We are going to create a users. So we can say these users are local users, but if we configure the server, this machine as a server, then it can be a server users also. So the user which we create right now, they can also be work as a server users. Now we have types of users. So first we have system users, and second we have normal users. Now system users, are like so this system users are the users which creates by default. These users are created by default. When we install the system. Now what is the use of these users? For example, we can say, for example, root user. This is also a type of system user. This is also a type of system user. Now what these users do? Now whenever we run any services in our system, so those services are run by a privilege. Remember, when we run any service, suppose we run some service like maybe I run FTP service or web service, or we will see those services. We can run mail service, FTP service, web service. So those services, those all services will not be able, they will not be run by the root user privilege. Okay, let me give you that example. Like so these system users job is to provide resources. Remember, resources. So what? Grammar mistakes. Now it is right. Okay. So these system users' job is to provide resources to services. To services. So this system user's job is to provide resources to the services. That means when you run any service, suppose I am running a web service. So web service needs some resources like some files, some configuration files, some sharing files, some web pages. Now those web pages, those services files, those configuration files need to be accessed by the service. Now when the service try to access those files or those resources, our system asks like which privilege you want to access. You are like, who are you? What our system say, who are you to access these files? I don't know you. Now the service says I am this system user. For example, I am trying to run the web service. So the for the web service we will have a one system user, and that is called Apache. In Linux we have Apache as a system user for web service. FTP FTP system user for the FTP services. uh, for the mail, for the DNS we have named user. We have for DSCP we have DSCP user. So for different services we are having some user account, and those are what system user accounts. So when our service runs, maybe suppose web service or DNS service, so when DNS service runs and it try to access those resources, those files from the system, so system asks who are you to access these files. So system says, so service says I am this user and I want to access these files. Now those services, those users have only the privilege to access only the resources related to that service, and they cannot access any other resource. That means those services who is responsible to run something, for example DNS or web service, maybe web service. So the user web service system user has only the privilege to access only the resources related to web service, no other services. Now what is the benefit of this system is like, if suppose some hacker has compromised the web service. Suppose this is your web server and some hacker has compromised your web service. Now what? He can access your system through the web service. Now if your web service is running through the root user, remember there is only one system user, if I say root user, which we see. So if there is only root user and all the services are running through the root user privilege, so if any hacker hacks the web service or any other service, he will get the access of this root user, and that means what? He will access all the thing in your system. So for the security reason, all the services will run by a separate service account, so that when any hacker hacks the service, suppose the hacker hacks the web service, so still it can get only the access to those resources which is accessed by the web service, not any other resources. So it will get the privilege only on those files which is accessed by those web services. So that is why we have system user for all the services. So all the system users is is for so all the system users are for some different services. Now who will create these system users? We don't create these system users. These system users are by default created when we install those services. Suppose if I want to configure the web service, if I install the web services, that user will automatically create it. So there are some system users are already there with some services when we install the system, and in future also these users will come when we install some other services. Now all the rest of the users are called what? Normal users. So normal users are the users which we create. So these users are the ones we create. So whatever the user we create, they will consider they are considered as a normal users, and they don't have any permissions. They have only the rights and permission related to their own service, their own files, and they don't have any permission in on the other files of other users or system files. They will get the permission when we give the permission to those users. Now when we talk about groups, so what is group? So group is nothing but a collection of objects. It is a collection of object, and in this case it's a collection of users. So group itself does not have any entity. It has only the name, name as a attribute, and as a members as a attributes. That means group does not have any password, does not have any login ID. It is only a name. You cannot log into the system with using the group ID, and you cannot use it for logging. It is only for collecting. It is just a collection of different objects, and different object, that means in this case we are talking about users. So we can create groups to make a member users, different users to that groups, and then we can assign permissions, we can distribute files, we can assign permissions, we can do we can do all of these by using groups. Like for example, if I want to give permission to 50 users on some file, so instead of giving them one by one, I will assign the permission to a particular group, and all the members of that group will get that permission. So it will be easy for me to do this. It is easy for us to manage the permissions and all that. So groups, nothing else. It is just a collection of users. Now here, when we create user in Linux, so when we create user in Linux, when we create users in Linux, it will create per user per group basis. Now what that means? Per user per group basis means what? When you create a user, it will create a group also. That means when we create user, for example, I'm giving my name, this is user, then system will create one group also with the same name, like this. So when I create a user with the name, so it will also create a group with the same name. That means with every user, one group will be created. And, and that group is called primary group of that user. Or we can say like this: user is the primary member of group. So we can say either way, like we can say this is the primary group of the user, or we can say this is the primary member of the group. Both are true, but whenever we create any user, one group will also be created with that user, and that group will called as a primary group for that user. And also we can say like this is the primary member of that group. Now remember this important thing, and this is important, that no user can reside in system without primary group. Remember, without primary group, no user can reside here. No user can exist. So without, no user can reside in a system without primary group. Now one more thing. Okay, take these things as a point. Important points. So first, no user can reside in the system without primary group. Now one user can be member of multiple groups. Now one user can be a member of multiple groups, just like normal system. Any user can be a member of multiple group, but only one group, only one group will be primary group, and rest of the groups will called secondary groups. Oops. Secondary groups. So one user can be member of multiple groups. That means we have one user and it can be a member of 100 groups, but only one group will be the primary group. All the other groups will called secondary groups. Now groups which we create or will be called, Okay, the group which is created with the user, or we can separately create the group also. Whether we create separately or is it created with the user, these all groups are normal groups. They are not a separate or special kind of groups. Now, any group can have hundred of users member as a hundred of users, like one group can have multiple members, multiple users as members. Now here, group can be a primary group for multiple users. That means one group can have multiple users as primary members or secondary members, both. That means these are normal groups. So it can has a primary members, multiple primary members. That means only one group can be a member, can be a primary group for multiple users, and only one group can be a secondary group for multiple users. So these are some points. Let us design like this. So I will use this. So when you create a user, by default it will create a group also. Now when you create a user like this name, so the same name group will also be created, and this group will call as a primary group for this user. So it calls what? Primary group. Oops. It calls primary group. So when you create a user, same name group will also create, and that group called primary group for that user. Now now we can create a group separately also, and we can make these user member of those group also. That group will call as a secondary group. That will not called a primary group, because one user can have only one primary group, and rest of the groups which that user member, which that user will be member, it is called secondary group for that user. Okay, now the next thing is UID and GID. Every user that we create, they will get one unique ID, and that is called UID. UID means user identification number, and every group that we create, every group that we create will get one unique ID, that is called GID. So whenever we create a user, it will get a unique ID. It is called UID, and because the group is also creating with that, so it will create a group and it will get the GID. Whether it is created with the group, with the user, that is primary group, or if we create a separate user, still it will get a unique ID, and this is called UID and GID. So UID is for the user and GID is for the group. Now these UIDs and GIDs are the unique IDs. All the users, whether it is system user or the normal user, they will get a unique ID. For example, the root user has the ID of 0 because it's a first user and it is the main user. So for example, root user has ID 0 as UID. Now because every user has a group, so root user also has a primary group. So and primary group of root user, and that is also root, has ID as 0 again, as 0 GID. So user root is the first user, so it gets the ID which is 0 as a UID for the user, and for the GID it also get 0. Now all the other users, all the normal users, have also, and system user has also a unique ID. Now these IDs are different for system users and normal users. For system users and normal users, they are different IDs. So for example, it's a reserved actually. So these IDs are reserved for system user and normal users. So first, ID from 0 to 999 is reserved for system user. Then when we create any user, those users will get the ID from 1000. 1002, it is configured as 60,000, but we can go more. That means these are like we can say it's system defined. We can say it is logical, but practically it can go more than 60,000 normal users. So these IDs are defined for the system users from 0 to 999. That is 0 is for the root, and from the 0 to 999, like we have different system users like FTP, DNS, DHCP, web services, mail services. Now all the services are not there, so all the 999 UIDs are not there by default. But when we start installing the services, those users will start creating, and those IDs are reserved, so they will get a unique ID for their services user. So those are reserved. So normal user will not get the IDs from these range from 0 to 999. So normal users always get the ID from 1000 to 1000 to from 16,000, 1000 to 16,000. It is not that only this it will get we can and that does not mean like we can create only 60,000 users, but 60,000 is also enough. It's more than enough. But we can create physically, logically it is defined, the range is defined, but practically we can create more than that. We can create more than that users. Now when I am talking about these IDs, I am talking about both UIDs and GIDs. That means both will create at the same time. That means when you create the user, the group will also create. So the UID and GID both will be assigned at the same time. So you are having a GID also from 0 to 999 reserved for the system users, and 0 to 999 GIDs for reserved for system groups, and 1000 to 60,000 UIDs for users, and 1000 to 60,000 GIDs for groups, because they are together. So I will say here UIDs and GIDs. So both UIDs and GIDs are reserved. So when I'm talking about 0 to 99, that means I'm talking about UID and GID both. So when I create one user, normal user, it will get a UID of 1000, and the primary group which is created with that user, it will get the ID of 1000. User will get the ID UID 1000, and group will get the GID 1000. So whenever you create, it will get the same ID, and if it is available, if suppose the ID is not available, that means then it will create a separate ID. In case if the ID is not available, same ID is not available, then it will give the other ID to the group, the primary group. Suppose before creating the user, I created one group, first group. So the group will get 1000, because it will start from 1000. Normal UID and GID will start from 1000. So it will get the 1000 GID, that group. Then when I create the user, first user, so that user is a first, so it will get the first UID for the normal user, and that is what? 1000. But 1000 GID is not free, because it is already assigned to one group. So the primary group for that user, the user which I created right now, that user primary group will get 1001, because the primary group is the first 1000 ID GID is already assigned to a separate group. Only that case. But by default it goes same, like same GID for the primary group and same GID for the user. But it is not necessary. And also we can change that. So these are the things we have with these users. Now, still we have not created any, but now last thing. Hmm. What users get after we create users? That means what users will get when we create the user. So first, user gets primary group. That means whenever we create a new user, it will get a primary group also. We don't create that group, it will create automatically and the user will get the primary group. Next thing, it will get what? Users will get their home directory. They will get their own home directory. Home directory under. Now remember, all the normal users' home directories are going under /home. So whenever I create any user, that user will get the home directory under /home. For example, if I create username this, so home directory for the user will be under home slash with the same name. Like this. So this will be the home directory under the home directory for that normal user. Then what user get? Users will get mailbox. Mailbox with their name. Now remember, mailbox is not a directory, it's a file. Mailbox file, I will write it here. They will get a mailbox file. Remember, it is a file with their name under where spool mail. So under this directory they will get their mailbox with their name. Now with their name, that means So if you create a username this, so the mailbox file for the user will be underware spool mail and the name of that user. So this will be the mailbox for that user. So these are the things. Okay. Now last thing before creating the users, system files. System files of user configuration. Now system files, but we will not configure those files. Remember, these files are configuration files for the systems, for the user configurations, but we will not change those files. These files are for the reference, for the information. We will use commands to configure those files. We will not actually we can directly configure those files, but that is not recommended. So configuring the file directly, it is not recommended, but we will use commands to configure those configure the users informations. So the first file is /etc. Now remember, etc is the configuration directory. In that, the first file is passwd. Now this file contain users info. Informations. Contains. Now it will say users. Okay, like this. So this file contains users information. Users information, that means whatever the users informations are there, like UID, GID, and the other informations. These all information will be available in this file. Now next file is under etc shadow file. Now this file contains users password informations. So this file contains users password informations. So whatever the password informations, like what is the password and when it is going to expire, and what is the minimum expiry date, maximum expiry date, and other informations, all the informations will be stored in this file, and you can see that file, you can read the file. Then the last file is under etc group file. Now this file contains groups information. Now groups information, that means whether it is primary group, secondary group, all the groups. Groups informations. So this file contains all the informations related to the groups. So whatever group you have, either is it a primary group or a secondary group, all the informations of the group will be stored in this file. Now we know, almost we have seen all these things, like what is user and how is it in the Linux system, what is the structure of those users, what are the configuration files. Now we are ready to create the user now. For creating users, so we have already one user root and one normal user. Remember that normal user is not a normal user, it is actually a user which is as administrator, but it is still not an administrator, it is not a root, but that user is added as a root because it was created when we installed the system. Now I want to create the user, so the command is very simple: user add, and then you will mention the username which user you want to create. For example, I want to create username agot, and I will press enter. Done. User is created. Now where the user will log in? So user will log in when I logged out from here. I will logged out from here. Graphically I will log out, and then I can log in with this new user which I created. Or I can go to this different command line terminal, and I can go to here and I can say username agot. Now it is asking me the password. So password I have not created. So what I have to password I have not given to the user, so I will try blank. I will say enter. Now what it is saying, login incorrect. So remember, without password no user can log in. You can create the user, but it is not like Windows. Without password you cannot log in by default. Remember, by default. And when I say by default, for anything, that means it can change, but for now you can't log in without password. You can't log in without password, so user must have password. So for creating the user, the command is very simple: user add, or either you can say add user, and then you will mention the user name. This is to create the user. Now without password, or I will say without, by default without password no user can log in. So remember what I am saying, so create or modify. That means if the password is not there, then it will be created, and if the password is already there, then it will be modified. For create or modify password, what we'll do, we will use this command pass wd and then user name. Now when you press enter, it will say assign the password like this. So it was not allowing this user to log in, so I will give pass wd and then username, enter. Now what it is saying here, changing password for user root. That means there is no password, there was no password, but it is saying what, changing password for user root. So it is it is for creating the new password, or maybe if it is for modifying the password also. So here you will say the new password, like I will say ABC. Now it is saying what, it is a bad password and the password is shorter than 8 character. So it needs actually password which is at least 8 character, complex, not a simplistic word, not like ABC at 123. It needs the password like this. Now because I am root and I am creating the password, it can allow me to do any password. That means it will allow me to give any password. So I will retype ABC and it will say yes, it is authenticated. So it will allow me to configure any password. But if user try to change the password itself, then it will not allow that user to change the password with less than 8 character and simple word. It will stop that user. So when you run that command, you will get this. And when you type any password, it will not show you any star and anything, so that nobody can guess what is the how long the password is. That means when you type the password, it does not show anything, so that anyone cannot guess how long the password is. So this is how you can assign the password. Now once the password is assigned, user can log in. So if I try to log in this terminal, so I'll go here again, I will say agot and the password is ABC, and you can see now I can log in. And one more thing, it says here there was one failed login attempt since the last successful login, and that attempt was the previous one which I tried to log in without password. So it consider that as a failed attempt. It is also helpful if someone try to log in with your name, your password, your user account, and it try to guess the password. So when you log in, you will know that okay, someone was trying it. So you can say like, okay, someone is trying to attack on me. This is also a good feature for you. And now you can see here the username at the machine name, and this is what the dollar symbol. And if I give pwd, I can see that user is in his home directory right now, and it is under home with the name of that user. Now one more thing, normal users can change their passwords, but root user can change any user's password, because the root user is the administrator. That means what? When normal user try to change the password, when normal user try to change the password, it will ask the previous password. When normal user try to change the password, it will ask the previous password. But for root, it will change. It will change without asking anything, because it is root. So when normal user try to change the password for itself, it can change, but it will ask the previous password first. Then it will say try to give new password. But when root try to change the password, it will not ask the previous password. It will directly change. Now let's see what we have done till now. So we have created this user. So what this user get? So first the user gets the home directory. Oh, first the user get the home directory, which is under home, and you can see it's a directory. Okay, and this is what the user which we created when we are installing it. Then it gets what? Mailbox. The mailbox it will get under where spool mail directory. Under that you have this previous user's mailbox and also now this user's mailbox. Now you can see the color of the file. It is normal black and white color, and this means what? This is a normal file. When we say mailbox, so it is not like a box like a directory. It is just a file. Then what? We will see the system files. System files, the first system file is what? Passwd file, which contains the user's information. So we can use vi or vim. And one more tool which I have not shown you, I think I forgot. It is nano. Nano is also command line editor, and it's a very old tool. That means it is from the beginning, from the GNU standard. It is from the GNU standard, and it's a very simple tool. You can just create the file by using nano, and the file it will create. You just start typing, no insert mode, no that mode, not this mode, or everything what you want. All the things are there in the bottom. You can see, you can press those things to do whatever you want. Like suppose you want help, so you will press this uh, caret G. Caret G means control G. You press control G, you will get the help. And then these are the commands which you can use to do in commands. This is also command line tool, command line editor. It is also called GNU Nano.
Okay, class. Nice.
GNU Nano. And like suppose I want to exit, so I will select I will press Ctrl X, and when I press Ctrl X to exit, it says you have made some changes. You want to save it or not? If you say yes, then it will say which file name. You say this one, and then press enter, and done. The file is created. So this is also a very simple tool to use. So instead of this VI or VIM, we can use Nano also, but mostly we use VIM because it shows in color and all that. समझा ना तो?
हाँ, actually से क्या बोलना है?
So I'm going to show you those system files in VIM. So the first system file is etc under etc passwd. Now this file contains the information about users. So when you press enter, you will see this. What you see here in the first line, this is the first user, and first this is what? This is the, wait, I will do what? I will put it here in the file so that you will understand. And it is this. So the first thing is what? The first place. I will make some spaces, but don't want to have capital. Why I'm doing these spaces? So that I can explain what this means. Okay, so the first part you see is the login name. This is login name. After that, login name, you see this is what? Is the UID of the user. That means whatever the UID user will get, that UID you can see here. Now as this user is a root user, so you can see the UID is 0. Then the next number you see is the GID of that user. So whatever the user you have created, you will see the GID for that user is in this place. Okay, I missed one thing. I missed this one. I missed this X. Now this X is actually we can say it's a password mask. So I will write on only mask here because of the space. We are not having much space. Okay, so this X is actually represents the mask. It is actually represent the password mask. Password mask, that means we can say that it represent that the password is there. It shows that the password is there, and I will show you what that means actually. But for now you should know that only this means what? Password mask. Okay, so after that, this number indicates the UID of the user, and this number indicates the GID of the user. The GID means the primary group's ID, GID, and both are 0 because this is root user. Okay, then this one, okay, wait, let me show you this. Which user we created? Did we created one user? Okay, because we are talking about this user, so I will name here that user so that it will be easy for you to understand. So because it's a system user, so I will say it will get 1000 ID from the 1000. I will show it will get the 1000 ID. And the primary group for the user will also get the 1000 ID. And this one will be the name of the user, I will say. And here will be this. Now what? Ah, you know what? Adjusting it in this place is a little difficult. And I hope you will understand, huh? Okay, I hope you will understand. So the first place, and remember these are divided by these colons. So the first place of the information is about the login name. Then what? Then the second place indicates the mask, password mask actually. And then this third place indicates the UID of the user. The fourth place indicates the GID of the user. Okay, I will do what? I will reduce the size of this so it will fit into the line. Now it will fit. So the third place will indicate the GID of the user. Now here in this place you will see other information, or we can say extra information. It is just an extra information, or we can say additional information. Okay, additional info. I will write in short additional info. So it shows additional info here in this place. Then in this place it shows the home directory. It shows the home directory, and in the last place it shows the shell. So this is what the information for the file. So when you open this information, when you open the file, you will see this information. Okay, what I will do here, I will convert it into table. This is good. Hmm. Okay, now this is right. So when we open the file, so when you see the file, you will see the information like this. The first place you will see the name, that is the login name. Then this one, X means a mask. Then this will be the UID. This will be the GID. This will be the additional information. Here you will see the home directory, and here you will see the shell. Now this is okay. So this is what the information of passwd file. So this is the information of the passwd file. So as you see in the file, this is the user information, that is user login ID, login name. Then this is the umask, it is actually the password mask. Then this is the UID for the user, and this is the primary groups ID, GID. This is additional information. This is the home directory. So root user's home directory is /root, and this is the shell. And now you can see the system users here. These are the users which is already available in our system. Not all the users are there. There are some users, but not all. There are some users already there, like for these different services. Like for example, for Apache, we are having some here, Apache Tomcat. We are having a user for the MariaDB services. So those users are available which services we installed when we install the system. If you install the system with no services, less services, like you install the system with the uh, command line version, minimal installation, so you will see more less users here, more less users, less system users. But we installed the server with lots of users, so it is showing that here. And now this is the line you see. This is the user with we created when we install the system, the login name of the user, the mask, and you see this is the normal user which is starting from 1000. 1000 is the GUID, and with the user the group is also created, so the group ID is also 1000. Then you see the additional information here, and then you see the home directory, and this is the shell. Then this is the user we just created right now. User login name, mask, and the UID is what, 1001, and the GID for the user's primary group is 1001. Now it does not have any additional information because we created the user normally. We have not added any information. Like you can see this user, this system user is O profile user, and this is the information for that user is like a special user account to be used by O profile. So in this place you will see those kind of special or additional informations, but we created this user without any information, so there is no information available here. And here it is available because we created it when we installed the system, so system added this information. Now this is what the home directory for the user, and this is the shell. Remember, all the users of the Linux system will get by default this bash shell. In old systems like Unix, they will get sh, normal shell, but now all the user gets this bash. Bash means born again shell. It is the most stable shell for the Linux, so they use default sh shell. But there are some other shells also available, which is ksh, csh. Csh is written in C, kernel sh, normal sh, or even we can also design our own shell. Like if you are a programmer and you can design a binary file, you can design a program shell for your your user. So you can design your own shell. Like shell will define like what user can do and how user can give input and how user will get the output. So you can also design your own shell for the user, so user, and then you can assign the shell to the user, but by default all the user will get bash shell. And same as you can see these system users, what shell they are getting here, they are getting what, no login shell. Now no login shell means they cannot log in on the terminal, not even a graphical terminal, not even a command line terminal. Because they are system users, they can work in a background, they don't have to log in on the system. So if your user does not have any shell, they will not able to log in. So system user does not have to log in, and they should not have to log in, because if you give a shell to them, then anyone can use it. So system user does not have any shell, and normal users will get the bash. So this is the information we have in this passwd file. Quit. Okay, now the second file. Second file we have is passwd file, which contains the password information for the user. Password information, minimum, maximum, expiry information, and the password also. You can see the password also. You can even see the password. So this is the second file. Now here you can see the password also. Now you will ask me, where is the password? So this is the username here. This is login name for the user, and the password is this. This is the password for that user. Now what is this? So it is actually hash encrypted. You can see the password, but you cannot guess the password. It is actually hashed and encrypted. It is hashed with the MD5 hashing algorithm with salting. MD5 256 bit and also with salting. So it is not easy to crack this one. This one is very tough. Remember, encryption can be reversed, but hashing cannot be reversed. So if you know the hash, still you cannot reverse it. Nobody can reverse it. Nobody can reverse it. So when you are having a hash, nobody can reverse that hash. Now nobody can reverse the hash. That means system itself cannot reverse the hash. That means when you log in with your system with your name, when you log in with your name and password, so when you assign the password, then what happens? It will not reverse the pass, it will not reverse the hash. It will just do what? It will hash your password again with the same algorithm, and then matches the hash with this existing hash. So it will not reverse, so nobody can reverse your hash. Now as you see, without password nobody can log in. So you can see here the system users does not have any password here. So the system users cannot log in. You are having a password for root user, and when you go down, so we created these two users, and these users are having the password. So only these users can log in. System users will not able to log in. Now what other information you are having here? Let's take the file. Let's take it into the file here. Okay, I will copy this. So I will take it here. And what I will do, I will add into the table, so it will be added. Okay, okay, so I will say like these are hash 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 hash, and these are the passwords. Okay, so first is the login name again, then the second one is the password hash, then this information. This information indicates the last password change. Now it is not a date. If you see, it is not a date. It indicates the last password change. Now last password change, that means it indicates a days since 1969. After 1969. After 1969, that means the date when the Unix first time, the first operating system, the Unix was invented. 1969. So after 1969, it is counting the days from that year or that date. So it is counting the days since 19 after 1969. So the last password change, that means it is after 1969, 18,577 days after the password for this user has changed, and you can count that day. So it will indicate what? Last password change. Okay, it's getting long. After 1969. Okay, then this 0 indicates the minimum password age. This 0 indicates minimum minimum password age, and this one indicates maximum password age. Then this one indicates the warning period, like before password expiring it will give the warning before 7 days. So this is the warning period. Then you have two extra options here available, and that indicates I will show you this. It is getting very big. Let me convert this into table first. Mm, okay. Okay. So the first is login name, second is the password hash, then this one indicates the last password changed after 1969, and that is in days, and this is minimum password age. Now 0 means you can change password anytime. If suppose there is 1, that means you cannot change password before 1 day. And then if you don't change password, then this is the maximum password age. After 9999 days your password will expire, and you have to change the password. But before 7 days it will give you the warning. Before 7 days it will give a warning to change the password. Now I think it is already a time, so we will continue this tomorrow, because we have to see the other files also.